Aloha, babe. Good morning. It is a morning that I'm just so tired. I'm exhausted. If you're that one person that just sleeps for maybe like 2 hours and feels somewhat refreshed or energized, that is me. But my has been catching up on me, so it's been very exhausting for me. Today's devotion, we're going to talk about redeeming anger and turning pain into purpose. First off, what pushes our buttons? An emotional outburst is often when our buttons are intentionally or unintentionally pushed. It's natural to react instinctively when our unhealed emotions are triggered. A lot of us have past trauma, childhood traumas, or even traumas that just happened recently. It's just like that one little thing that just triggers you and just throws you off. For me, it's lying. When somebody lies to me right to my face and I can feel that they're lying, that's a trigger. For me, I've always grown up with broken promises raised by my grandparents. My parents was there, but there wasn't there, like physically in my view. They always tell me that, oh, I promise you I'm gonna pick you up. I promise you I'm gonna do this. I promise you I'm gonna do that. And when somebody promises me something and they lie to me, it's a trigger. Okay, and that trigger was from many years ago. I mean, I'm gonna be 40 in February. Don't judge. But it's been years, right? And I still have that as triggers. Do I want to let it go? Yes, I do. When you have feelings of misunderstanding, rejection, fear, along with any other negative emotions, it can drive us to react very defensively. Okay, instead of responding with kindness, we have this defense mechanism. For me, when somebody lies to me, I end up cutting them off. If you cannot tell me the truth, then I don't need that in my life because I've had it all these years. I'll give you a chance, but the second time you burn me, that's it. I'm done. There's no third chances. But it's natural to act like that. And that's why I do devotions, because if it wasn't for devotions or turning to the Lord, where would I stand today? I'd probably be this one person that just hates the world. The world didn't do anything to me. It's just certain individuals. But we take it out on everybody. And it sucks for that one person that you take it out on that didn't even deserve it. You have to learn to understand our trigger expression, especially when we need to respond to a situation or how we react to a situation. We have to learn our triggers. And so for me, I learned to walk away, to be quiet, and to wish them well. No matter how dirty somebody has been to me or pilau in their own ways, which I don't know how people can think that some ways that they treat other people, even of our own culture, can be the way that they be, but then out in the image they're so fake, but internally they're so nasty. I just don't know how people can be like that. But when I'm in situations like that, I wish them well, even though they seem like they're doing amazing, and which I just don't understand. Like, how can you be doing so amazing, and then you blessed with all these things, but you have like the nastiest, and you're so unkind, so not godly? That's something for another day. That's a discussion for a next devotion. But we have to understand what triggers our emotions and how we react to other people. It exists because of an experience we had that left a deep emotional wound. When we're hurt, we're threatened, we're embarrassed, ashamed. It creates a vulnerable spot within us that later we encounter a similar situation, even way years down the line, like how I mentioned, right? That lying or that promises, it just reminds us of where subconsciously it ends up reminding us of where the original pain started, where that trigger came from, those feelings, that shame, the embarrassment, the distress. And as a result, we react both internally and externally as well. No matter how far that soft spot happened, whatever that situation was triggered that memory, and it just shot you right back to where it was like 20 plus years ago. But we have to recognize those triggers. And now that I'm older, it's so much more easier to recognize all the little things that I had to deal with somewhat years ago. What we got to realize is that how those triggers came about and how they influence our reaction, right, to crucial controlling our emotions and responding thoughtfully rather than just letting our anger consume us. Now, are we going to take it into consideration and make it into a negative into a positive, or are we going to continue making it into a negative to a negative? It's essential to recognize our emotional response because it isn't always caused by the person we're interacting with. The idea of just having our buttons pushed implies that these buttons have already exist way before that person. That we hear and perceive what somebody has said triggers our reactions, and sometimes it gets so tripped within us that we just anger. Here's something that you guys can do to heal. When we begin healing our emotional triggers by reflecting on two key questions and be willing to process the underlying memories, right? These questions are not easy, but once we can be true to ourselves and really unravel what is those triggers, then that's when the healing process begins. Two questions I'm talking about, excuse me, is what am I feeling? Okay. And then number two is, when have I felt this way before? Okay. And this may require you to look back in the past months, days, maybe even years down the line, right? To just uncover that source of that original trauma or emotional wound. Example, there's so much things that is a trigger. And for me is, I promise, I love you. Huge one for me. It's so funny because in your relationship you learn so much of your partner. For me and Moses, I love you is a huge thing. I still do it. I always tell him, do you love me? Kind of like, because you just want to hear it, right? I know he loves me, but I just want to hear it. Of course I love you. I love you so very much. Like, I love that. But in our younger times of dating, it was always like, of course I love you. I wouldn't be with you if I never loved you. And then for me, I love you was just a word. It didn't mean too much to me because the I love yous and the actions of the I love yous was totally indifferent. My parents, right? They would tell me, oh, I love you. And then I wouldn't see them for months. When you're in that growing young adult mode and you need that help, like even with like $20, my parents are so fast to say no. Not really my mom, but mostly my dad, the one that's more successful and helping everybody else at that time. It was those moments when I felt like, gosh, if you love me, like, you would help me. You wouldn't see me struggle or walk so far because you cannot even give me $20, but you can give somebody else $20. And my dad was always one to hold money in his pocket, so I knew he had the money. It was just me. I think for me was no, for everybody else it was different. I learned by all of that experience, all those triggers, I learned to not have an empty pocket, to always make sure I had that emergency fund. And mind you, this was way before I was in my 20s, so don't even think that it was at the age of my adulthood. I was still in my teens. I never wanted to have to ask anybody for anything because I couldn't stand the no's, especially like when times are rough. The no's just didn't really help me mentally. It just drained me emotionally. My grandparents was always there, and for them they would always tell me, here's whatever you need. But it always came with a learning. Always shared with me something to learn about. Okay, D, here's what you need to do. Every time I give you money, you have good grades, you do good, you help Papa and Grandma out, or you wash the house, you do chores, and then I'll give you two $10 instead of one whole $20 bills. And then you take the 10 and you give Grandma the other 10, and then I'll hold it. Then that way when we go to shop or whatever and there's something that you really like, I have the money, and then you can go ahead and use that to purchase something that you really like and you enjoy. And that's what I loved about my grandparents. Like, they always shared some knowledge to be able to help me to grow, to better myself in anything that I needed to do in life. And with my parents, it was always just a strict no. Like, with nothing. And also viewing the yeses for other people, but for their own daughter it was a no. That's a trigger for me. It's an emotional wound. So when Moses would always tell me that he loved me, I couldn't tell between a real love or a fake one, because throughout my life I feel like I had a lot of fake loves, so I love you wasn't really a word that really meant anything to me. The Lord, I knew he loved me because he was with me 24/7. My grandparents was with me 24/7, and they always uplifted me through all the hurt that I had to endure in my childhood. Um, Although everybody thought it was amazing, and it wasn't, especially when I would go with my dad and I would get all these things, right? Because he was just buying my love, even though he was absent. But you cannot buy somebody's love, because for me, that's just a poor way of dismissing you. Anyways, by answering those two questions, right? What am I feeling, and when have I felt this way before? We gain insight into which emotions are triggered and which past experiences remain unresolved. As an adult, I had to unravel all these things, and maybe about a couple years ago, I decided to let that past go with my dad. That relationship, I just knew it was just dead. Do I see my dad the same way? No, I don't. Maybe at a younger years, my younger year, I always thought my dad was just this amazing person. Like even my mom. My mom was amazing. It's just she had like a lot of hard times, right? But when you dig into these emotions and you see all the past experiences and you realize how many of those experiences are unresolved, it affects you down the line. And it started to affect my relationship with Moses, because I put all that pain onto him that he didn't deserve, that I was going through because of all those unresolved issues with my dad. Years ago, I decided, enough is enough. I'm not even gonna build that relationship. If that relationship wants to be built with my sons or me or whatever, then let it be. But I have no problem walking away and being like, okay, I'm done and over with, because there's nothing, there's nothing there, to be quite honest. I'm that child I'm a ghost. Like, a lot of people don't even know that that's my dad, and it's fine to be like that. It's fine, and if we confront these memories, right, we reframe our interpretations, we embrace the process of our feelings, the intensity of the original wound will diminish, and it's somewhat diminished. To have to talk about this is really hard for me because I've let it go a couple years ago. I rarely text my dad. I rarely talk to him about anything. Majority of the time we talk is if he's coming here and he needs a ride. That's about it. I love yous, of course. I will always love my parents no matter what, but it's a different type of love. It's not foolhardily like how it was before, because it's just that grayness and emptiness. And I've learned through all these years of doing devotions and being connected to the Lord that, of course, you're never ever going to forget it, but you have to forgive and move on. And I forgave and I moved on, right? So the healing process allowed me to disempower the button, gradually just softening my tender spot. That's just all over, right? Over time, when were faced with situations that may have once triggered that strong emotional reaction, we find that ourselves are so much more better equipped to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. There was this one incident on social media, and one of Moses's cousins had mentioned something about their dad. I made a response and didn't think about it, but I reacted impulsively. Because to me, you're lucky to have your parent or your father in your life that worked so hard, that's been there for you 24/7 whenever you needed it, anything, from what I assume, right? And again, it's the assumption, right? But you have that parent that will go above and beyond for you, that will give you what you need to help you if you ask. Have that, and you choose to dismiss it because of your own pride. For the people that don't have that, that's something that we long for, and you wouldn't understand because you've never been through it. You never had to deal with it. For me, I feel like that's such a blessing, right? You have your parents there to house you. You have your parents there to help you. You have your parents there to uplift you, to guide you, to pay for your stuff. If you need to go anywhere, like, they're there. Mine? No. I can tell you how much phone calls I get from any of my family members throughout the year. The only person that really texts me and texted us last year was for the tsunami, and that was my auntie. I can get probably like one, no, not even one phone call. I don't even get one phone call a year from any of my family members just to see how I'm doing. Like, not even a text. And that's sad because I have plenty family members in this world, it just shows a lot. It is what it is, and that's I think that's why my grandparents always told me that I have to be strong. Sometimes the people that you think will be in your life will probably not be in your life, and I have to be strong because there's only me and my family, and that's all I need to worry about. You know, my grandma and my grams and my papa was very adamant of me not needing to have anybody to be beside me, and a lot of it was because of my parents. My grandma always told me that, you know, when I get older, don't count on anybody. You know, you do what you gotta do, and if you fall, you do your best, but you keep getting up no matter what. And now I do. No matter how much people bring me down, our own culture. No matter how much people bring me down in business, in personal, in friendships and whatever, because of I don't know what reason. I fell. Don't get me wrong, I fell, but that trigger of just hearing my grandparents tell me to not fall, and my papa would always scold me, "Oh, just get up and let it go," you know. And I always my head space turns to that original moment in his room, with me sitting down next to my papa and him scolding me because my uncle's girlfriend at that time that was in the house, she said something to me that was really hurtful, and felt like I wasn't good enough. And if it wasn't for my papa, who knows where I would have been, because he had they had seen a journal of mine. I just didn't want to be here. And I was a teenager at that time. I know, I think I was maybe like going into high school. Like, these triggers, devotions is not easy. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Devotions really dig into the deepest spots, and you have to be strong and ready to dig in and dig deep and cure yourself. And it's only gonna be through you digging into those times of those triggers of the way people would treat me. I think that I'm stupid, I'm not capable of doing a lot of things. I've been told I wouldn't make enough money to do all of this stuff. I'm stupid for wasting my time in the industry, in the safety industry. Yeah, I'm a female, all those things. And look where I'm at now. All those things with the Lord had ended up uplifting me, my grandparents uplifting me. But like I said, going back to that moment with my papa, if it wasn't for him, who knows if I would still be here on earth. And if it wasn't for him telling me to let everything go and don't worry about how people treat you, just ignore them and walk away, even though I tried and I still got scoldings from my uncle. Things was kind of rough, you know, my childhood and my uncle's girlfriend. It was just a lot for me. And a lot of people don't understand. In high school, yeah, I wanted to take my life. I didn't want to be around. My grandparents' household was great, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about. There's times when it was just enough, you know. I never did wrong. I never lied to any of my aunties. Maybe once or twice, like if they asked me, "Oh, where's your bike?" and I lied that, "Oh yeah, it's outside," and it wasn't. But I was always blamed for lying. I was always blamed that I wasn't honest. I was blamed for not listening. I was blamed for not doing this. I was blamed for doing something I didn't do. And you know, growing up, I didn't really have a voice. You know, my grandparents always told me to just be quiet and just accept whatever came towards you, right? And I think that was the hardest thing. So I always had to accept that I did things that I didn't do. So that's the one thing, is a misunderstanding when you come into contact with somebody and they don't understand you and they make assumptions about you, and that's kind of, then you end up growing this button, right? They just push the button that just triggers something. Okay, going back to devotion, you know, you want to unlock your life. Okay, and this is what I just did to you. I just gave you an insight of me unlocking different areas in my life that I learned to deal with, and I learned how to trigger that emotions to something positive. I don't do that to my kids. I never will. I never would ever make them feel the way that others have. I would we would teach them to be pono with everybody, same culture too, and do the right thing no matter how hurtful it is, to always tell the truth no matter how, no matter if you're gonna get disciplined or not, you tell the truth no matter what. And we've always raised the boys to be like that, because that's how my grandparents raised me. No matter what, you still going to tell the truth, no matter how hurtful it is, or how much you hurt somebody. The truth will always let you free. Next time your buttons are pushed, just ask yourself those above questions. Take time to just identify one or two buttons you're already aware of, or that tend to challenge you. So, for example, you may react when you feel misunderstood, like I just mentioned, right? Knowing that, ask yourself when you first felt that way. And was it with a boss, a coworker, a coach, a friend, a family member, a parent during high school, a childhood? Like I said, all of these things just unraveled, right? When I do devotions, there's so much things that come about. Oh, just always ask God for wisdom, right? In processing deeper wounds that are still creating turmoil within. And if you need to seek counsel, which a lot of people seek their therapist, counsel is therapist, if necessary. If not, talk to somebody that you can open up with. Your peace of mind and relationships are at stake. If you don't make you don't take those measures, right? If you want to get out of the thought process of dwelling in anger and temper, you have to take that steps and unravel. Like, look how built up I got. I almost cried on here. But like I said, it's hard. Some of these devotions are rough, and it's there's times when I've been in devotions by myself, and I filled up a whole pot of tears, of emotions that I could never let go for many years. So when you start partnering with God, we're gonna say this prayer, or if you want to say this, you can, or you can make your own prayer. But today we're gonna do a prayer together. So let's go ahead and bow our heads. Okay. Father God, please shine the light of your spirit on the deepest places in our hearts. We invite you to expose memories that cause us to feel insecure when we feel misunderstood. We know that you want us to feel loved and secure, and to respond to the people you have put into our lives with patience and grace. Give us an understanding of the reason I naturally react, and help us to heal wounded areas of our life so that we can respond to those around us. In Jesus' name, amen. And that was our prayer for this devotion. So tomorrow we're going to continue this devotion, and we're going to see what else unravels and what we got to do for this plan. Before we head out, let's go ahead and jump into the few scriptures that was part of this devotion. Psalms 4 says, "Don't sin by letting anger control you. Think about it overnight and remain silent." This is one thing that I have a hard time doing. I don't think about it. I think about it maybe like 5, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Moses, he sleeps on it. And I love that he does that, because then he doesn't overreact. He thinks about it, he lets it process. Sometimes it takes more than overnight, and then he's like, "Okay, babe, let's go." You know? But there's some things he's like, "Okay, no, we're gonna take action now." For me, sometimes I let the sin get in my way, and I react on feelings and emotions and anger. And that's something that I had to learn for many years, and I'm doing so good now. Now I think about it, or sometimes I just remain silent and I just let it go, and then I dwell in the background, maybe dwell like away from them, and then I think about all these things, and I'm like, "This motherfucker," like I go behind closed doors and I say those things to myself and with the Lord, and then he calms me down, and then, "Okay, babe, this is what we're gonna do." Okay. So yes, so don't let that anger control you, because it doesn't always come out great. Proverbs 25:28 is, "A person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls." And that was me at one point. I never have self-control. Working in the shipyard, you just don't have that self-control. You speak what's on your mind. Okay, and I was really one that spoke what's on my mind. In safety training, I do speak my mind, because in safety, you cannot hold back. And that I took my career into my personal life. And in my personal life, I just spoke without a filter. Now I know that in the business world, right, building partnerships with a lot of businesses, I had to pray upon it and learn to have self-control. Even though I didn't like what the person said, the self-control was just take in what they said, understand it a little bit, and come back to it, and then respond in a more more kindness, um more civil, more positive manner, um and then ask those questions, right? The whys, the what ifs, the how, how can we do, how can we continue this relationship, or what can we do to have this relationship, or all those things, right? And if you look into the scriptures, it really breaks down a lot of things of what we're going through today. And I hope this I really hope that this devotion really hit a spot. It really hit a spot for me today, because triggers and our buttons is a huge impact in where our life is today. Proverbs 21:23 is, watch your tongue and keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. That was a hard one that I had to learn, right? I had to learn how to shut my mouth, keep silent, walk away, sleep on it, think about it, talk about it away from the person, and revisit. Okay. But what the Lord is saying is just watch your tongue, right? Because what slips off of your tongue can be really, really, really detrimental to just your relationship, and just overall your just life in general. If you're one to just be nah, 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 you probably get into a lot of troubles. A lot of people probably don't like you. You probably get not so good service, So be mindful of what slips off your tongue. Proverbs 10:19. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. Okay, that was me too. Okay. I love to talk. I love to share, because I'm so blessed and excited of where RKT Safety is coming about, right? I love to talk about my business. I love to talk about all the things that we've learned. I've loved to talk about to all these things. But I've learned too that too much talks lead to somebody burning me in the business industry, because of the things that I've talked about, or things that you do in your training, and somebody takes that from you and incorporates from their own, and they make it seem like they came up with it. Something else that happened in the industry, right? But you don't expect people to steal your things and then say that they came up with it on their own, and they're making successful things out of that one thing that you had discussed to them about. But you just let it go, and the Lord just says, you know what, that is your consequence. I told you, D. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and learn to keep your mouth shut. And lately I've been doing that just fine, and this, and so yeah, so I'm very proud of myself. I've learned a lot. I continue to learn about business and personal life. The business life, it's a lot, but the personal life is so much more better than before. With that being said, thank you guys for joining me. I hope to see you guys soon in the next devotion. Ahoy ho.